Well, I spent my day listening to documentaries on YouTube about children and young women who've been abducted. The shortest I've listened to, I think, was 9 months, and the longest was 24 years. I'm always surprised when people don't know about that one. My pronunciation isn't perfect, but it's something like Elizabeth Fritzl, who was put into a dungeon by her father, a home-built dungeon, when she was 18, and kept there until she was 42. And during that time she had 7 children by him, on her own, in the dungeon, and one of them died, and his body was burned by the father, stroke grandfather. I shouldn't have watched that last because, well, it's definitely the worst, obviously. And no, I'm not going to fall into that trap. There are people saying you can't possibly compare anything in your own life to those things. Yes, I can. Yes, I can, because I was in fear of my father until the day that I believed him to be dead. I was effectively imprisoned until I was nearly 26, i.e. the first 26 years of my life, effectively, simply because of the physical and mental illnesses I had that were never treated by either parent, nor my brother either, even though he observed some of them. But I could make a long video about what I just heard, but people can watch these things for themselves, of course. I did wonder why. Actually, it's obvious if you think about it. I have to say that one of the American victims, Elizabeth Smart, seemed to have made a much, much better recovery than one of the Austrian victims. Austria seems to be the place to keep people, young women, in dungeons, but Elizabeth Smart was 9 months in a mountain prison, but not quite the same sort of prison. She was never in solitary confinement, for a start. She did fear for her life, obviously, and she was left without food, which seems to have been a common ground for all of them, that they were all semi-starved for periods of time. She seemed to me to have made a remarkable recovery, whereas I can't honestly say the same about Natasha Kampusch. And of course nobody knows how Elizabeth Fritzl has done, because the world has never seen her, or a photo of her, or her account of events. Natasha Kampusch was 8.5 years in a dungeon in solitary confinement. In some ways, I have to say, Elizabeth Fritzl's confinement must have been slightly improved by the addition of 3 of her 7 children, because A, it gave her human company, and B, it gave her a focus. That's my opinion, anyway. The idea, mind you, of giving birth on your own in a dungeon with no medical treatment whatsoever it's just incredible. And I have heard, surprise, surprise, that her hatred for her father is a bottomless pit. Gosh, I wonder why. I've also heard, but there are various versions of this story. And in fact, two documentaries about Elizabeth Fritzl didn't quite agree with each other. Although I did hear details I'd not heard before, and I've got a book about it. I did hear that she had trouble forgiving her mother, who accepted her husband's story that her daughter had left 3 babies on their doorstep for her to raise, whereas in point of fact he'd taken them out of the dungeon, cellar, whatever, and given them to his wife. The papers in Britain had said nobody knows why 3 were taken out and 3 left behind. We do now. At least 2 of the babies who were taken out were ill. One had a heart defect. I'm trying to remember what was wrong with the other one. I suppose with incest like that, you would have at least a 50-50 chance of children who would be more inclined to be ill. Yes, one of the ones taken out had a heart defect, and the one who died had breathing troubles and was left by the father/grandfather to simply die of them before he was burned in a furnace. I was about to make comparisons with my own life, but actually I do think those survivors did have something going for them. Justice. Their captors were caught and punished. Supportive families. Although Elizabeth Fritzl, very fraught indeed. I should think that her mother had believed those stories. And not looked for her. And I do keep going back to my brother, accepting that my father did in fact abuse me, accepting that in all probability he was in fact a Nazi. Actually, the Nazism has become less important to me, although it's there. It's true. He accepted that our father had abused me, and then went on to make excuses for him. Oh, he was a product of his time. But when it became obvious that I wasn't going to forgive him, my father that is, the same didn't apply. I was supposed to get over it. With my family, this has been the problem all along, actually. That it's more comfortable for them to defend my father and the beliefs they've always held about him and about me than to accept the truth. So I do face the knowledge, personally, that I'm going to my grave without any kind of justice. Or you could say I wasn't in Elizabeth Fritzl's position, or Natasha Kampusch's, nor Elizabeth Smart's. I would say not that far off in some ways. I was in fear of my life from the age of 7. My father made it quite clear to me, which I may not have said before, from the age of 7, that death could be around any damn corner. So I shouldn't have been surprised when he poisoned me when I was 10, or when he tried to suffocate me when I was 15. But he was a product of his time, and I should get over it. Well, of course I never have, and now never will, especially as I'm dying at a relatively young age because of the lung damage done to me in childhood. which was caused by my father and pretty much untreated. It would be true to say that I do identify with those young women to one degree or another and in one way or another. It's never been made entirely clear whether Fritzl also raped his daughter/granddaughter, the one who wound up in hospital, and as a result of that, the whole family was freed. That was Kristen, wasn't it? 19. It's never been made clear whether he also had an incestuous relationship with her. It's been speculated on. And sod it, I have hinted all around it. I know that my father did have an incestuous relationship with at least one of my daughters. I know this for an absolute fact, not only because of what I saw with my own eyes, but because of what she has inadvertently told me, regarding it as perfectly normal, as we all did. Everything my father did was normal to us. The only thing that is telling is that my brother does accept that I was abused, does accept that he was a Nazi, and we were the two people who knew him the best, of the living, that is. If my mother had only told her story, what a story that would have been. And I would have liked very much to hear it. Because I've speculated for years, and now I know for certain that at some point my mother also succumbed to Stockholm Syndrome. I'm pretty sure I have said so on past videos. Two of the victims, Elizabeth Smart, 9 months a prisoner, and Natasha Kampuch, 8.5 years a prisoner, gave it said it was key, really, to forgive their captors. Elizabeth Fritzl never will. And I never will. I will also never forgive the rest of my family for preferring to live with their lies and my father's lies and their comfortable little worlds than to give me any support of any kind for what is now, in point of fact, nearly 62 years of suffering because of my father. Because after all, his last gift to me was the confession of 2 murders. Some gift. If my brother had any imagination, which he clearly hasn't, he would know it's not possible to get over it. And of the documentaries I've seen today, the only one who really did was Elizabeth Smart, who endured it for 9 months, and then had a supportive family to return to. I think the supportive family bit is absolutely key, but I also think that justice is key, i.e. that she saw her abuser, her abductor, jailed. And if you don't get either of those things, I think you're in deep, deep shit. So, I don't forgive you ever. Not any of my family, not any of you who are on my father's side, who will even begin to accept his lies, who will even begin to say, oh, it's forgivable, he was a product of his time, but I must get over it. Why couldn't he get over the product of his time? part. Why couldn't he get over it?